Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with yours truly. Today we're going deep on something I think we can all relate to.
Let me guess. Is it about how to make the perfect cup of coffee?
Haha, not today, but maybe we can do a deep dive on that sometime.
Sounds fun.
Okay, so today we're diving into stress.
Ah, yes. Stress, the universal language of the modern world.
You got that right. But more importantly, we're going beyond just managing it. We're
Right.
going to be looking at how to actually thrive, like truly thrive, even when those pressures are on.
I like it. Thriving under pressure. Who doesn't want that?
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that the source material we're looking at today, it takes a pretty unique angle.
Mm.
Yeah, it's set up like this inspirational video, almost like, a message from the future,
From the future, huh? What year are we talking about?
specifically 2025.
2025. Okay.
Yeah, it's all about how we can use what we've learned, what we're learning about stress now to actually, really thrive in the future. And get this, to even give us 5 keys. 5 keys to get there.
5 keys, huh? Well, I'm intrigued.
Me too. But I got to be honest with you, I'm a little skeptical too. Like, is 2025 really going to be that different? Is this just some like clever marketing ploy?
I think it's less about a specific year being, like magically different and more about a trend that we're already starting to see. Like there is this growing focus on mental and emotional well-being, right?
For sure.
And it's like a shift, like moving away from just grinding through stress, white knuckling it, to actually looking for ways to thrive.
Totally. Okay, so let's jump into these 5 keys the source material talks about. So the first one they give us is reframe your mindset. Okay, I get the idea in theory, seeing challenges as opportunities for growth, but how do we actually do that, right? Like when you're in the thick of it.
It's all about intentionally shifting your perspective. So like just imagine a deadline at work.
Okay, got it. Deadline looming.
Yeah. So instead of panicking, what if you looked at it as a chance to really showcase your skills, showcase your efficiency?
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, the deadline doesn't change, but how you view it does, right?
So it's almost like tricking your brain into seeing the positive, even when it feels really stressful.
You could say that, yeah. It's about training yourself, like training yourself to focus on the potential for growth instead of getting stuck in that like fear-based mindset.
Right, right. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah.
So what's key number 2?
Well, key number 2 is prioritize self-care.
Ah, this one is always tricky for me.
Yeah.
Like we're always told self-care is important, but then there's always this nagging feeling of guilt,
Mm.
right? Like, shouldn't I be doing something else?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. That's a really common feeling, actually. But the source makes a good point here. They say it's not selfish, it's essential.
Hmm.
Think of it this way. You can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Right.
So if you're constantly running on fumes, you're not going to be effective anywhere in your life, let alone thrive.
I love that. You can't pour from an empty cup. I'm going to write that one down. Okay, but what does self-care really look like in practice? I mean, bubble baths are great, but they're not exactly a daily solution.
True. It's not always about these like grand gestures. Sometimes it can be as simple as taking a few, mindful breaths throughout the day,
Mhm.
or like stepping away from your desk for a 5-minute walk, or even just making sure you're getting enough sleep.
So it's more about incorporating these small moments of rejuvenation into your routine.
Exactly, yeah. The key is to be intentional about it.
Yeah.
It's about actively choosing to do things that replenish your energy and support your well-being.
Okay, I like it. I like it. What about key number 3?
Key number 3 is set clear goals and boundaries.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Which honestly, I think a lot of people struggle with.
For sure. How do we even begin to set those boundaries when it feels like everything is important, right?
I think it comes down to, first identifying what truly matters to you. What are your real priorities, personally and professionally?
Okay.
So once you have a clear sense of that, it becomes easier to say no to the things that don't align with those things, even if they seem important on the surface.
I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up. It's so hard to say no, especially when you're worried about, I don't know, disappointing others or missing out on opportunities.
Right, but that's where being really honest with yourself about your capacity comes in. It's not about being selfish. It's about protecting your time and energy so you can show up fully for the things that matter most.
That makes sense. So it's not about shutting everything out. It's about being more conscious about, where you focus your energy.
Exactly. It's about creating a life that feels aligned with your values and your goals rather than constantly reacting to external pressures.
Love it. Okay, I'm ready for key number 4.
Okay, so key number 4 is embrace connection and community.
Okay, this one seems pretty intuitive, right?
Uh,
We're social creatures. We need those connections. But sometimes, like, stress makes us want to isolate ourselves even more.
it is a tricky paradox, isn't it?
It is.
Like when we're stressed, we often crave connection, yet we tend to withdraw. But the
Mm.
truth is, those connections are even more important during challenging
Yeah.
times.
I know personally for me, like when I'm stressed, just talking to a friend, can really help just put things in perspective. But what about when those connections feel strained? Or if someone is not great at, like, reaching out?
That's where being proactive is important. Don't wait for someone to reach out. Make the first move. Schedule that phone call, send that text message, suggest grabbing coffee. And remember, even small interactions can make a difference.
Yeah.
Like a genuine smile, a kind word to a stranger, these things can all contribute to a sense of connection and belonging.
So it's not just about those close relationships. It's about fostering a sense of community in all areas of your life.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that even those small acts of kindness can have a ripple effect.
All right, on to the final key. Key number 5,
Hit me with it.
leverage technology wisely, which feels especially relevant these days, right?
For sure.
I mean, technology can be so helpful, but it can also be a major source of stress.
Absolutely. Think about it. Constant notifications, the pressure to be on all the time, the endless scroll of social media.
Ugh, it's exhausting.
It's no wonder people feel overwhelmed and exhausted.
Okay, so how do we use technology in a way that actually supports our well-being instead of depleting it?
It's all about, being mindful and setting boundaries.
Okay.
So maybe that means turning off notifications, setting limits on your screen time, or even taking a break from social media completely. It's about recognizing the ways technology might be contributing to your stress and then making conscious choices about how you engage with it.
So it's not about avoiding technology altogether, but about using it more intentionally.
Exactly. Think of it as a tool, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't use a hammer to screw in a light bulb, right? You choose the right tool for the job.
Right.
The same goes for technology. We need to be discerning about which tools we use and how we use them.
I love that. It's about reclaiming your power over technology instead of letting it dictate your life.
Precisely. It's about creating a healthy relationship with technology, one that supports your well-being rather than undermines it.
So we've covered the 5 keys.
Mhm.
We have reframing your mindset, prioritizing self-care, setting goals and boundaries, embracing connection, and using technology wisely.
It's a good list.
They all make sense to me, but they also feel kind of high level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what about some more specific strategies for actually dealing with stress in the moment?
Well, that's where this source material gets even more interesting.
Oh.
Yeah, it goes beyond these, overarching keys, and it actually gives some very practical techniques like practicing gratitude.
Oh, gratitude. That's a good one. I've always been intrigued by that one.
Yeah.
It seems so simple,
Yeah.
but can just focusing on what you're grateful for actually make a difference when you're feeling super stressed?
Well, research actually shows that it can.
Really?
Yeah, it's about retraining your brain to focus on the positive, like shifting your attention away from what's draining you to what's giving you energy.
So instead of dwelling on the negatives, you're actively seeking out the positives, even if they're small.
Exactly, because even those small moments of gratitude can have a big impact on your overall well-being. It's like building up this reserve of positivity that you can draw on when things get tough.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all ties together. So we have these overarching keys like mindset and connection, and then more targeted strategies like gratitude to help us shift our perspective in the moment.
Exactly, and the source material actually offers a few more of these strategies, which we can delve into further.
Yeah. So another strategy they highlight in the source is focusing on what you can control.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in worrying about things that are like totally outside of our influence, right? Oh, yeah, for sure. I think we've all been down that rabbit hole of like what ifs and all the worst case scenarios. But how do we actually like break that cycle when it feels like so much is out of our hands?
The key is to shift your focus. Shift your focus from what you can't control to what you can. So start by making a list of the things that are stressing you out. Then go through each one and just ask yourself, is this within my control?
Okay, so If it's something I can actually, like, do something about,
Yeah.
like a work project that's causing me stress, then I can brainstorm solutions or break it down into smaller steps. But what about the things that are truly out of my control, like, I don't know, global politics or the economy?
Well, that's where the practice of letting go comes in.
Hmm.
I know it sounds a little woo-woo, but there's power in recognizing that you can't control everything and consciously choosing to release those worries. You can try journaling about them and then like literally tearing up the page or visualize those worries like floating away like clouds.
I actually love that. It's almost like giving yourself permission to stop carrying that weight. So it's like
Exactly.
this two-pronged approach, taking action where you can, and then consciously letting go of what you can't.
Exactly. You got it.
Okay.
It's about recognizing your sphere of influence and focusing your energy where it matters most.
Okay. I like that.
And even within that sphere, sometimes those anxieties can feel really overwhelming.
Yeah.
And that's where the source's final strategy comes in, celebrating small wins.
Oh, yeah, the power of acknowledging those little victories along the way.
Right.
I think it's easy to get, like, so focused on the end goal that we forget to appreciate the progress we're making.
Totally. It's like we're always striving for that next milestone, that next achievement that we forget to just like savor the journey.
Hmm.
But celebrating those small wins, even if they seem insignificant, can create this powerful shift in perspective.
It's like giving yourself a little pat on the back and saying, hey, I'm doing this. I'm moving forward.
Yes, exactly. And it reinforces that sense of progress, which can help boost your motivation and keep you focused on the bigger picture.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we're so quick to criticize ourselves for what we haven't done that we forget to acknowledge what we have accomplished.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to be intentional about celebrating those small wins. Did you finally finish that report? Did you make it to the gym like 3 times this week? Did you stick to your budget? Take a moment to acknowledge and appreciate those accomplishments.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be anything grand. Maybe just a quiet moment of reflection or treating yourself to a small reward.
I love that. It's about shifting our focus from what we're lacking to what we're achieving,
Yeah,
no matter how small.
exactly.
Listening to all of this, I'm struck by how the source material manages to balance these big picture ideas with these very practical strategies. It's really cool.
Right. It's not just about some vague notion of thriving. It actually gives you concrete tools to implement these changes in your life. But even with all the best strategies and tools in the world, there's one key point the source emphasizes that I think is crucial to remember.
Okay, what's that?
Thriving, it isn't a destination you arrive at. It's an ongoing journey.
I think that's such an important distinction. It's not about achieving some perfect state of like stress-free bliss,
Yeah.
because let's face it, that's probably not realistic.
Yeah.
It's more about, developing the resilience to navigate the ups and downs of life with more, I don't know, more grace and ease.
Yes, precisely. It's about learning to adapt, to adjust your strategies as needed, and to keep prioritizing your well-being even when things get a little chaotic.
And to be kind to yourself along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There will be times when you fall back into old patterns, when you feel overwhelmed, when you forget to celebrate those small wins.
For sure.
But that's okay. It's all part of the process. The important thing is to just keep learning, keep growing, keep moving forward.
It's interesting, thinking back to that initial idea of 2025 being this turning point for thriving,
Mm.
it almost feels like a little bit of a red herring now.
I think you're right. While it's a catchy hook, the real message here is much more timeless. It's about recognizing that we all have the power to choose how we respond to stress, regardless of what year it is.
Yeah. And that we don't have to wait for some external event or date to start building a more resilient and fulfilling life. We can start right now with the tools and strategies that we've been talking about today.
Exactly. Thriving is not a privilege reserved for, like, a select few. It's a possibility that's available to everyone. And that, I think, is the most empowering message of all.
Absolutely. So as we approach the end of this deep dive, I want to turn our attention back to you, the listener. We've covered a lot of ground today. From those 5 big picture keys to thriving to those more specific strategies for managing stress in the moment. But what resonated with you the most? What are you already doing well in terms of managing stress and prioritizing your well-being? And what are some new things you might want to experiment with in the coming year? Remember, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to thriving. What works for one person might not work for another. The key is to find what works for you, what fuels your fire, what helps you feel grounded and centered, what brings you joy. Those are the questions I would encourage you to reflect on because the journey to thriving is a deeply personal one, and the most valuable insights will come from within. And as you embark on that journey, remember to be kind to yourself, to celebrate your progress, and to never underestimate the power of even small, incremental changes, because those small changes over time can lead to extraordinary transformations. Well, feels like we've reached a natural stopping point in this conversation, but before we completely wrap up this deep dive, I do want to touch on one final point from the source material that we haven't explicitly addressed yet. And it's a big one. It's this idea that maybe, just maybe, reframing stress as a catalyst for growth could be the ultimate key to thriving. What do you think about that? It's this idea that maybe, just maybe, reframing stress as a catalyst for growth could be the ultimate key to thriving. What do you think about that?
It's a powerful concept, isn't it? It challenges us to like completely rethink our relationship with stress.
Yeah.
What if instead of seeing it as this enemy, the big bad, we saw it as a teacher,
Hmm.
a force that when harnessed correctly can actually like propel us forward.
So it's not about eliminating stress altogether, which honestly feels impossible, but learning to work with it. Like
Yeah.
seeing those moments of pressure, not as setbacks, but as, I don't know, opportunities to learn and grow.
Exactly. It's like building muscle, right?
Okay.
You put stress on the muscle, it tears, and then it rebuilds,
Yeah.
stronger than before.
Right.
It's the same with our minds and our spirits. Those challenges we face, those moments of stress, they can actually help us develop resilience, resourcefulness, and a deeper understanding of ourselves.
Mm. It makes me think about like those entrepreneurs we were talking about earlier, the ones who like thrive on the pressure of building something new. It's like that stress fuels their creativity and their drive.
Exactly. They don't shy away from the challenges. They lean into them, knowing that on the other side of that discomfort is growth and innovation.
So instead of asking, how do I get rid of stress? Maybe the question is, how do I use this stress to my advantage?
I love that shift in perspective because
Yeah.
it's empowering. It puts you back in the driver's seat. You're not a victim of circumstance. You're an active participant in shaping your response to those circumstances.
And it circles back to that idea of reframing our mindset, which
Yeah.
was like the very first key we discussed.
It all comes back around, doesn't it? It all starts with that internal shift, choosing to see those challenges as opportunities, stress as a catalyst for growth, and setbacks as valuable lessons.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into the world of stress and thriving. We've explored those 5 keys, those practical strategies, and even this idea of stress as a potential force for good. I feel like I've learned so much, and I hope you have too, dear listener. Remember, the journey to thriving is unique for each of us. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. It's about exploring these ideas, experimenting with different strategies, and ultimately discovering what works best for you. And being patient with yourself along the way. There will be times when you nail it, and times when you feel like you're back at square one. But that's okay. It's all part of the process. Thriving isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about continuously learning, growing, and evolving. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we encourage you to take what resonated with you today and start putting it into practice. What small step can you take right now to prioritize your well-being, to reframe your mindset, to build a more resilient and fulfilling life? Because you deserve to thrive, and the world needs you to thrive. Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration and discovery. We'll be back soon with more deep dives into fascinating topics. Until then, be well and keep thriving.